Today on Sports Burst, we take back everything we've ever said about Atletico's attack. The Colchoneros putting 5 past Osasuna to claim their first La Liga away win of 2020, and they move provisionally into the top 4. That is at least until today's matches. Real Sociedad looking to reclaim that Champions League spot in the derby visit to Alaves, while match day 29 may have saved the best for last. We will look ahead to Real Madrid against Valencia, all while Ray Hudson joins me for all of that, plus a quick glance at the odds to win the Champions League with a surprising clear-cut favorite leading the pack of some usual suspects. Welcome to Sports Burst. Good morning, good afternoon. What is time anyway? For months, the days all blended together with no football on TV now. Every day is Saturday, and we're here for it. Welcome into Sports Burst. It is day 8 of your La Liga binge on beIN. Here's what's coming up. beIN Sports Extra, 2 games from La Liga Smart Bank, the Spanish Segunda, featuring second place Cádiz away to Numancia, and playoff hopefuls Alcorcón hosting Sporting Gijón. A reminder, beIN Extra completely free. You can watch it through Roku, Samsung TV Plus, Pluto TV, Xumo, and even over the air across the United States. Go to beinsportsextra.com for more info. Meanwhile, on beIN Sports' main English channel, you'll get the Basque Derby between Alaves and Real Sociedad at 1:20 p.m. Eastern, 10:20 Pacific, followed by Real Madrid Valencia from the Alfredo Di Stefano Stadium. Coverage for that begins at the oddly specific time of 3:35 p.m. Eastern, 12:35 Pacific. And joining us now, our man in Madrid, Iñaki Angulo, beIN Sports Spanish football correspondent. Welcome, Iñaki. Good to see you. Let's start with Atletico's 5-0 win in Pamplona. 2 of those 5 goals, the first 2, by João Felix. He probably needed this performance as much as Atletico did.
Absolutely. He needed this performance, and Atletico Madrid needed too. João Felix played really well. He scored 2, but he played with aggressiveness in the final third, and Atletico de Madrid needs this. Simeone is trying to improve his team in terms of creating chances and goal scoring, and João Felix.
Okay, it looks as though we maybe lost Iñaki there from Madrid. It happens with a live connection. International, so we will try and get him back on in the moment. We're looking at some of the goals from that match yesterday as Atletico Madrid 5-0 winners over Osasuna in Pamplona. And so we'll switch over now to our beIN Sports match commentator and Olympic gold medalist in verbal gymnastics, Ray Hudson, is with us. Hello, Ray. Good morning, good afternoon to you. What do you make of Atleti's trip to... I know you like the Olympic line. What do you make of Atleti's trip to Pamplona, Ray? Here's an Atleti side that went all year without an away win. Then they beat Liverpool at Anfield before the shutdown. They come back with back-to-back away games, a point at a difficult place like San Mamés, and now a resounding 5-0 victory against Osasuna. Just your initial thoughts there.
Yeah, they were very impressive. You know, in the early going of the game, Andres, they looked as if they had to deal with quite a bit because it was a feisty opponent in the early going. But what I particularly liked, and this is something that Diego Simeone does not like, is to change his team too much around. But he knows he's going to have to try to do things in a different way now. And he did in this game. And in particular for me, before we get into the magisterial João Felix, we got to give full credit to Hector Herrera. For me, he was one of the standout players in this team. Instrumental in the opening goal where Felix rattled home. But the Mexican international, I thought, played very well. And it's not easy for these players to come in after such a long time. And given the situation, now this was a big boost for Atletico, and exactly what the doctor ordered. They were strong at the back. I didn't think Savage deserved to get that yellow card, but that's the way it is right now. Everything is out of normal, but all good and onwards and upwards for Atletico. And given the opposition, especially Sociedad, who for me has been playing the best football of the entire top 6, Sociedad's got some tough games coming up, and Atletico may be able to take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, one of those tough games for La Real is today as they play another derby against Alaves. We'll get to that in a moment, but let's go ahead and shift over to João Felix, because I was talking with Iñaki just a moment ago. João Felix probably needed that sort of performance. The goals themselves were pretty straightforward. One was, close range after a bit of a scramble, chaos. The other he's fed in nicely, unmarked from Diego Costa. But What can this do for a young player who, again, has been asked to sort of fill this mission impossible of taking over a role that was previously held by one of the world's top footballers in Antoine Griezmann? And so how big can this be as a launch pad for the final 9 games for Atleti?
I think it's going to be instrumental in everything they do from here on in. You know, they're building on the confidence of that magnificent Liverpool home and away, but they've been looking a little bit spluttery lately. Here they got it all together, and missing some big players as well, and other players in the lineup weren't at their operatic high note. This was a big confidence booster any which way you cut it, none more so than the magnificent João Felix, of which I'm his biggest fan. He was brilliant. I wouldn't discount the first goal. We've seen that type of goal missed a million times before, but the authority in which he struck it home, he called off his teammate to leave it for him, and it was the opening of the floodgates. But I got to give some credit to Osasuna, because I thought they played decent for the first 20 minutes and threatened Atletico, but top marks for Atletico and Simeone.
I want to talk to you about Atletico, Simeone, and a lot more over the course of this show. But I believe we have Iñaki Angulo back with us from Madrid. So I'm going to switch over to the Spanish capital for a moment. Just so stay right where you are. We'll be back to talk about that game and more in a moment. Iñaki, I think we have you back now. And so let's go ahead and shift over to today, because the marquee match of Week 29, Real Madrid taking on Valencia. You'll be there at the Alfredo Di Stefano Stadium for this matchup. The main question surrounding Madrid these days seems to be the same ahead of every game. Who's going to partner Hazard and Benzema? There's no shortage of options, but also there's seemingly no clear answer. It was Rodrigo last time, a little bit surprisingly, although Zidane seemed to have rotated his squad so that he can field his best 11 today. What is that best 11? And just namely, what is that one piece of the front three that is missing?
Yeah, I think, as you think, Rodrigo is not going to start today, but he did decently the other day. The one who is not going to be today or in the 4 upcoming games in the starting lineup is Isco, who's got an injury and he's going to be out for 3 weeks. But yeah, that's the missing piece. And the thing with Vinicius is that Vinicius plays in the left and Hazard is playing mainly in the left too. The other day, Zidane switched Rodrigo and Hazard played on the right, so that might be an option. Vinicius has a strong finish before football stop, and I think he can provide a one-on-one, he can provide the speed, and he can provide a lot of things that might merge well with these high IQ footballers like Benzema and Hazard, because this speed should be a new thing for Real Madrid.
Yeah, I think in Vinicius you also get someone who's constantly trying to take players on, trying to get in behind, where maybe there's a little lack of penetration when you have that front line that includes Karim Benzema, who likes to lay off some, Eden Hazard as well. Both like to create as well as score goals. The other piece that we expect to see return today is in that midfield. Fede Valverde could be back in the lineup. Modric got the start last time out. It is a star-studded team, Real Madrid. There's no question about that. But they seem to be at their best when they have the 21-year-old kid in place of the Ballon d'Or winner. What do you make of Valverde's return?
Yeah, I think Valverde is going to be in the starting lineup today, and Mendy as well. If we go back to the great Real Madrid, that team that performed really well between October and mid-January, it was because of the energy, because of the box-to-box offering that Valverde and Mendy gave to the team. So yeah, I expect Valverde to play. Valverde had a great performance in the first leg, replacing Casemiro, who didn't play at Valencia, and I expect him to play and provide that energy to the midfield. Modric was okay the other day, but I don't think Modric can deal with back-to-back games with only 4 days between those games. So yeah, I expect the Uruguayan to be in the starting lineup today and to have an impact like the impact he's had in every game he has played so far this season.
Okay, Iñaki Angulo joining us from Madrid, our beIN Sports Spanish football correspondent. Thanks, as always. We'll be checking back in with you probably after this big match between Madrid and Valencia. Worth noting, they finished 1-1 in Mestalla, needed that 95th minute equalizer from Karim Benzema back in the reverse fixture. It'll be the third meeting this season. They also met in the Super Cup semi-finals. Join us. Our coverage begins at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Real Madrid, Valencia from the Alfredo Di Stefano Stadium. Back with us now is Ray Hudson. Ray, thanks for your patience as we went back to Iñaki Angulo there. Let's pick up where we left off with Atletico Madrid. NFL coach Bill Parcells famously said, "You are what your record says you are." Well, Atleti are currently 4th. They could drop to 5th if Real Sociedad win today. You mentioned La Real a moment ago. Are Atleti the 4th or 5th best team in La Liga, or again, is this the start of a climb back toward the podium?
No, I think they're better than that. I think they're better than their records show. But in this topsy-turvy season, you know what, Andres? This may come as an absolute rocket booster for this. It's been that weird of a year. It's been that strange of a season. This might be the impetus that Atletico did. I mean, we've seen Real Madrid play. They've got business done in that first half. They looked tremendous. But the second half showed the old vulnerabilities that Zidane has been trying to get out of that team. Barcelona were, I would say, less than super impressive in their return, although it was damage done, and both those teams got results. Atletico's was the best performance overall, I believe, and I still think they've got more to show. So it could turn out nicely for Atletico. But listen, this whole situation with this two-horse race, it's Atletico that is looking as if they're in a strong position now to go on and claim that third spot. I was a bit dubious ahead of that, but the way Oblak's playing, we've got to bring him into the conversation, Andres. I mean, he's going to win the Zamora for the best goalkeeper, and in front of that defence. But he's had more clean sheets now than Courtois and De Gea, and he's done it in record time. So it's a phenomenal statistic. He's got 100 clean sheets in 182 games. And that's magnificent. So let's give a little bit of love, and I hate doing this, to the goalkeepers, because he's made a big difference to this team. And, you know, I loved his attitude when they asked him about this, not just about the Zamora, but about this new record that Oblak has set. And I could have kissed him. He said, statistics. I don't believe in statistics. I don't read the statistics. He just does his job, and nobody does it better than the Slovakian international. Absolutely world class.
Mark the tape, Mr. Producer. It's Ray Hudson giving love to the goalkeepers and not for playing with their feet. I think you told me once that they weren't footballers, but Jan Oblak is maybe the exception here. Let's get to some of the comments here, because Jabin Kurama writes, what a miracle Atletico scored 5 goals. Not just that, but the things, that the sort of the narrative around Atletico Madrid had been that they don't win away from home. Liverpool was their only, at Anfield was their only away win of 2020. Well, now they've gone away from home for 3 consecutive games. They beat Liverpool, took a point from San Mamés, and put 5 past Osasuna and Pamplona, and they don't score enough goals, which is true. They're still about mid-table when it comes to season total goals, but they can't have these offensive explosions. Again, they scored 3 at Anfield. They scored 5 yesterday. Nesta Boateng writes, the Magisterial Man is in the house. He is quite literally. Magisterial Man is quite literally in his own house at the moment. Richard Murray, Felix, João Felix didn't do much. Lodi, Diego Costa did most of the work yesterday in the first half. I think that is violently unfair, Richard. To say he didn't do much, aside from the 2 goals, I thought he was a pretty good threat, and all around a strong performance for Atletico Madrid. And one of the guys we haven't mentioned, you talked about Herrera, but I thought Marcos Llorente, who again is sort of a defensive midfielder, a box-to-box midfielder by trade. Simeone seems to like to have him playing closer to the opposition's defense. He scores here and has another good performance. We'll move along from that, because we want to get to Real Madrid.
There's a wonderful engine about him, but he's way more than that. Is the big unveiling of Llorente's total ability as a top footballer came out against Liverpool, of course, in shock. And people were looking at their programmes and saying, who's this kid at Anfield? They should have known, and maybe Real Madrid should have held on to him. Tremendous player. Like you say, he's adapting to Simeone's way, Andres. But again, this whole mix and match now, you got just spare a thought. I mean, we all know Simeone. He doesn't change his lineups very much at all. He doesn't like these extra substitutions. But he understands that these games are coming thick and fast now. And he's got a relatively young squad in many ways after that rebuilding of that back line that he went through. And, you know, there's certainly lots of youthful energy in the midfield and up front. Take away the Costa, who's, you know, his mature age. But all in all, again, a good announcement for Atletico. I don't believe anything this season. There's so many mirages that have occurred already, and there's more to come. This whole season's going to take more twists and turns in Space Mountain, and it'll be a wonderful ride. But for the fans, it's going to be one of those heart attack stuff right at the end, which is what La Liga is usually all about. So magnificent.
For example, Atleti, they're happy they're inside the top four right now. End of the day, they might be back outside of the top four, and we might have an entirely different storyline around the Colchoneros. Yeah. Let's move ahead to Real Madrid against Valencia, the marquee match today. They're meeting for the third time this season. Madrid beat them in the Super Cup semifinals before then going head to beat Atletico as well. But they also need to remember that 95th minute equalizer by Karim Benzema in Mestalla in the reverse fixture, that first meeting this season. Just spoke to Iñaki about how Zidane rotated his team in the first game back after the 3-month layoff. He can feel this Gala 11 now, but I want to ask you the same question I asked him. What is that Gala 11? Who is the other member of that strike force with Benzema and Hazard? And is it Vinicius because of sort of his characteristic of trying to get in behind, trying to take players on? It's so dramatically different from what, say, maybe Isco, Bale, or others might do in that role.
Yeah, it's your opinion, isn't it? You know, I prefer Isco in that lineup, to be honest. I think he adds a lot more of an engine as well, in a different variance in the attack. He's got the fluidity of Benzema and Eden to find. But you're right, Andres. I mean, with the likes of Rodrigo and Vinny, they've got that jackrabbit pace that's certainly going to explode. And yet, when we saw Rodrigo play in the last game, he was playing in much more of a tactical role, it seemed to me, in protecting his midfield and back line for all sorts of counters. He wasn't playing with any sort of leading forward role, and he didn't really shimmer and shine. I think with Isco, you have more control in that midfield area, despite the fact that Toni Kroos and I think Modric actually played pretty well in the previous game. Casemiro, of course, as you know, is a locked-in starter, but Valverde, trying to integrate Valverde on that left side with Mendy is a great component in order to stretch the way in a different way to Hazard. But he's certainly able to give impetus from that midfield attack in the shape of young Valverde. Everybody knows I'm a big Isco fan. I love what he brings to the control of the game. He's an inventive player. He gets into the box. He is totally indefatigable. So, hey, you know, again, I don't think there's any set route in this mad season, even with there's only 9 games left. The games are coming like a torrent at these coaches and the players. And the likes of Modric will get his rests, probably be left out today. But that gives you the option for increased effort and increased statement from these players that come in. And Real Madrid's Aladdin's cave of talent is so thick and deep that the pressure's on. You keep it going. Keep great players keeping great players out. You know, spare thought for James Rodriguez. You know,
so let's talk about that.
There's no way in for a top player like that.
Let's talk about that then, because he is sort of the forgotten man. But Colombian legend Faustino Asprilla, I know a player you admired quite a bit, had some interesting comments about James. He said, quote, "Don't tell me that a top scorer from a World Cup is below Mariano or I don't know who on the pecking order. You need to have a little respect. James is very patient. I would have told Zidane to eat bleep," said Faustino Asprilla in regards to the treatment that James is getting currently. Do you agree with that, or is that a little harsh from a man who admittedly does speak his mind quite often?
Well, he's speaking for his countrymen, of course, you know, and that's understandable, flying the flag of Colombia. But you can understand it as well. It's a strange route that he's taken. Everybody knows it. It's been well documented from the World Cup, where he has flattered to deceive in many ways. He's an option wherever he goes. You know, he's going to produce that magic, but it hasn't come out. I mean, we have to be fair, and it's awful to contemplate when you see such a special, gifted footballer that isn't being able to force his way in to Real Madrid. Hey, there's a number of them. You just look at that roster. Gareth Bale, is he an absolute certainty week in, week out for Real Madrid? He's not. So when you get these opportunities, these players have got to sink their teeth into it and draw blood like Dracula out of that opportunity. The way Valverde has. The way Isco did when he first got into the team. These are the opportunities that are going to establish them back into the Real Madrid way. The talent's there. Is the attitude right?
Yeah, sometimes a bit of a paradox of choice for Zinedine Zidane, right? If you have too many good options, they all seem a little less good. And so maybe it is difficult for him to pick out which exactly is part of that Gala 11 right now. One additional comment here from Lorena Rivas, who writes, I think Atletico definitely has a chance to win the Champions League if they can focus on it. One of the interesting things about the Champions League this year is that it's going to take place after the league is over. So any team that is in the Champions League is going to be, by definition, focusing on it. Champions League set to get underway, not officially confirmed yet, but in August, and likely in Lisbon as one of those like bubble cities. August 7th in Lisbon. Yeah, Atleti absolutely a contender, especially having knocked off a reigning European champions, Liverpool. The other big game today, Ray,
Isn't it sad as well, Andres? Isn't it sad? Isn't it sad though that Atletico won't have that incredible atmosphere of the Wanda to fall back on? I mean, if there's an asterisk behind all of this season in 2020, the Champions League should have 2 or 3 asterisks, because whoever's going to take it is going to be doing it under the most exceptional of circumstances. And I think it takes a little bit away from Atletico's their whole, but you could say that about all teams. But I believe Atletico Madrid find something else when they're at the Wanda, and that's going to be a big miss for them.
I think we'll still see Simeone wave frantically at the cameras, telling the sound guy to turn the fake crowd noise up, as he does with the crowd of the Wanda Metropolitano. The other big game this week, Basque Derby, Alaves against Real Sociedad. La Real coming off of a home draw against Osasuna. They traveled to Alaves, a short trip. Alaves just lost 2-0 to Espanyol. You talked briefly about La Real earlier. I think they've been the most, I'll say, fun team to watch this season. It's highly subjective, but I've enjoyed watching Real Sociedad with Porto and Odegaard and Merino and William Jose and Alexander Isak as much, and some wonderful attacking fullbacks, as much as any team in Spain this season.
Well, you know, I agree with you, and I was singing their praises in the early part of the season, how they came together with a beautiful balance, but like you say, an attractive style of football to watch. Bewitching in many ways. They've got some tough games coming up as well. They're going to be at Real Madrid soon as well, so against Real Madrid, so that's going to be a tough challenge for them. But yeah, take your pick. I mean, I couldn't. There's no favoritism here for me. There's not anybody that stands out to such an extent that you would put money on them. It's too much of a risk, and as we've seen that some of the results go lately, in some of those even individual performances by the top teams, likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona, within 90 minutes, you're looking at 2 different teams. I mean, literally, you're looking at 2 different teams. So every team's using the 5 substitutes. Right. So who knows, man? Yeah,
I just ran off a list of basically half the La Real team. I didn't even mention the talismanic Mikel Oyarzabal, who has been absolutely terrific this season. But speaking of a team that didn't use all 5 substitutions, Ray, the Coppa Italia final was played yesterday in Rome. Congratulations to Napoli. Napoli beating Juve 4-2 on penalties after a scoreless draw. Alex Meret, the young goalkeeper, saving a penalty from Dybala, then Danilo fired over the bar. All 4 of the Napoli players converted. That means that Rino Gattuso has done what Maurizio Sarri and Carlo Ancelotti could not. He's led Napoli to their first trophy since 2014. Sarri did not use all of his subs in this game. Gigi Buffon, arguably the best performer for the old lady. We have just 60 seconds here, Ray. Your thoughts on Napoli winning this trophy?
Well, first of all, it's not Napoli, it's Napoli. A fantastic performance. Rino Gattuso top man, one of the nicest people in the world, lifts it. He understands the team, he understands the players. He said it is magnificent to actually give this this trophy to Napoli, and it's great for him. This is a good man, and he's proven to be a good coach with solid backing from his ownership now, and I hope he continues his success. It's a nice team to watch, and unfortunately for Juve, they're going to have to focus in on the Scudetto now, and I still think it's going to be the Zebras that pip Lazio. Interesting.
They also have the Champions League to play for. The last few comments here are pretty interesting. Rich John saying Madrid will drop points today. Visam Tapo saying Madrid will drop points today. It's a big game, Madrid against Valencia, coming up today. And as Pirlo Fauzi Odebat also fills in here, we talked about this at the beginning. Isco silent with a foot injury today. Iñaki gave us that update at the start of the show. We are fresh out of time for this edition of Sports Burst. My thanks to Iñaki Angulo for joining us from Madrid. And as always, to Ray Hudson from joining us from what I believe is his cinema room, if I'm not mistaken. That's going to do it. Join us for the Express wrap-up show at 6 p.m. after all the day's action, plus 2 big games in La Liga coming your way, starting in just a few minutes.